Well, good evening, this is Houndog Steve wishing you a very pleasant evening, and it is just incredible the things that are going across my desk these days. And now I will just give you this caveat first off. I have nothing to confirm this other than the Canadian Bankers Association video, which you'll be seeing, and it certainly seems to just tie in with a whole bunch of stuff. So even though there's no supporting evidence, it certainly seems to ring true. And this is about the sudden reversal of Trudeau and the Emergencies Act. Okay, this was a sort of almost a magical 180 degrees, and I wondered when I watched the retraction, you know, I was looking at Freeland, and her body language was just unbelievable. It was like she was standing on hot bricks or something. She was looking around for support. She looked completely isolated. I thought she was completely freaked out. So just let's pop over. It's just a very short clip. Just take a look at Freeland and how she is behaving. Look at the body language of this woman.
In a democracy, you can protest. You can share your opinion at the top of your lungs. You can disagree with elected officials. You can certainly disagree with me. But you can't harass your fellow citizens who disagree with you. You can't hold a city hostage. You can't block a critical trade corridor and deprive people of their jobs. You can't attack journalists for reporting, which is essential to our democracy. What you can do is vote. What you can do is run for office. That's how change happens in a democracy.
Now that is the body language of a person who has just been absolutely, completely dressed down. Okay, and here's why. Here is the explanation for that. Canada was getting ready to be a test nation for the rollout of a digital identity. And it is interesting, here's a little piece. Doug Ford was talking about, even though we're scrapping all the mandates, all of the passport, all of that kind of stuff, he is still pushing ahead with a digital identity. And this from LifeSite News. Ontario still plans to roll out digital ID even after scrapping inoculation passports. Ontario's reference to the CV situation as the impetus for restructuring society echoes the statements of the chairman of the World Economic Forum and his organization's globalist Great Reset agenda. No kidding. So here we go. This is Tuesday, February 15th, 2022. Toronto, the province of Ontario, is still gearing up to launch a robust digital ID system in the coming months, even after Premier Doug Ford announced that he will be axing the QR code inoculation passport system. So there's no doubt this is a happening thing, folks. So this is real, and the World Economic Forum do want us all to be on like a Chinese type social credit system, but you know, they can't tip us off too quickly because we might just freak out and go, what the hell are you talking about? Well, when Trudeau and Freeland decided to freeze and seize bank accounts and assets, to end your insurance, to start controlling funding platforms that were used for GoFundMe and GiveSendGo. And this, of course, can happen to any funding platform. Okay, the government tipped its hand. They can go into your bank account at any time. They can label you as under suspicion of being a terrorist, and they can go into your bank account and they can shut you down immediately. Can you imagine what would have happened during this if we were all on universal basic income? You see, this is the downside. This is the downside. This is the ultimate form of control. And if you buy into a digital identity, you are done for. We're going straight to China, and as you'll see in the article I'm about to read, I'm not going to have too long of an intro here because it's quite a long article, but I think you'll find it very, very interesting. And the Canadian Bankers Association, because they were getting ready to roll this out in Canada because they thought we were a bunch of passive patsies. And because of the Freedom Convoy, it provoked Trudeau into invoking the Emergencies Act, and they just couldn't resist. They couldn't not reveal who they were, wanting to go after your cash. And look what's happening with Russia. Oh, we're going to stop your SWIFT system. This is... I'm not even going to get into whether Russia deserves that or not. The point is, this is how they do things. They neuter you completely. And if you don't think that closing all of your bank accounts isn't going to neuter you immediately, you guess again. Okay, so this is what they're trying to lead us into. It's a trap. It's an absolute trap. And I mentioned before in a couple of videos, not to be lulled, not to be goaded into this trap. I mean, I thought that the CV inoculation would be the trigger. Well, because, you know, you'd want to have proof on your passport, right? Anyway, it obviously wasn't working. It wasn't working the way the government said it was, because now we have to have a digital identity. Anyway, listen, I'm going to flip over, read you this article. Very, very interesting. Please, if you can, stick to the end. I know it's a little long, but stick to the end. I think you will be stunned. And the bankers, the Canadian Bankers Association video, please check it out. Okie dokie, here we go. Okay, so this, The Last Refuge, a ragtag bunch of conservative misfits. Yes, it's a conservative rag, but the article is jolly interesting. Boom, Trudeau Reversal Motive Services. Canadian Banking Association was approved by World Economic Forum to lead the digital ID creation. And this is February 23rd, 2022. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. A promotional video from the Canadian Bankers Association, CBA, helps to neatly connect all the dots about why the Canadian government made such a quick reversal in their bank asset seizures in the last 24 hours. And yes, as we suspected, it was almost certainly contact from the World Economic Forum to Canadian Finance Minister Freeland that triggered the change in position. When Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Finance Minister Freeland announced they would use the Emergency Act declaration to target the financial support systems, banks and accounts of the people who were protesting against CV mandates, they not only undermined the integrity of the Canadian banking system, but they also inadvertently stuck a wrench into the plans of the World Economic Forum and the collaborative use of the Canadian Bankers Association to create a digital ID. Against the backdrop of the Canadian government action, watch this video. And we are going to watch this video right now before we move on. And just check out this guy's cheesy grin as he tries to suck you in to a digital ID.
Canada is on the cusp of a revolutionary innovation that will transform the way Canadians authenticate themselves online and protect their identity. Digital ID. All of us are living in a digital world, but we're tethered to an analog model of how we identify ourselves, memorizing countless online passwords, carrying government-issued licenses, plastic cards, and more. Digital ID is a way for Canadians to identify themselves to government, businesses, and each other electronically, with ease and rock-solid security, without the need to present physical documents. One interconnected network. A federated digital ID ecosystem developed in collaboration with Canada's best and brightest talent from our banks, telecommunication companies, law enforcement, and government. It would have the power and security to store every Canadian's electronic identity and attributes. And it would unlock countless opportunities for Canadians to verify who they are safely, quickly, and securely, while only revealing the information necessary for each transaction. A fast, easy, and secure way to bank, sign up for government services, renew driver's licenses or health cards, shop, travel, and more. Canada's banks are perfectly situated to help lead the creation of a federated digital ID system between government and the private sector. The World Economic Forum agrees that banks and financial institutions should lead the path forward for digital ID. Banks are highly regulated and trusted. They have advanced cybersecurity and privacy technology, and they have the infrastructure to operate provincially and nationally. Banks are also at the forefront of working with fintech startups who are bringing revolutionary mobile and online products and services to Canadians. Digital ID can help consumers navigate between these apps and programs with trust and confidence, knowing their ID is protected at all times. A federated digital ID approach can also significantly reduce fraud, save taxpayer money, improve regulatory compliance, and make it easier to do business as an owner and as a consumer. In fact, the Canadian Bankers Association just launched a white paper with our recommendations on how to move forward with a federated digital ID framework. I encourage you to read it to learn more.
If the Canadian government can arbitrarily block citizen access to their banking institution without any due process, what does that say about the system the Canadian Banking Association was putting into place as part of their digital ID network? Yes, it says lots, doesn't it? If the CBA digital identity were in place, the same people targeted by Trudeau's use of the Emergency Act would have their entire identity blocked by the same government measures. The realization of this issue, reflected by a severe undermining of faith in the banking system, is a dramatic problem for those working to create and promote the digital ID. It is not coincidental the financial targeting mechanism deployed by Trudeau Freeland, the Canadian banking system, is the same system being used to create the digital identity. As a result of the government targeting bank accounts, Finance Minister Freeland just created a reference point for those who would argue against allowing the creation of a comprehensive digital identity. The motive for the World Economic Forum and Canadian Bankers Association to immediately reach out to Trudeau and Freeland and tell them to back off their plan is crystal clear. That is almost certainly why Freeland appeared so admonished, shocked and incapable of getting her footing yesterday, and why the Canadian government simultaneously informed Parliament they were unfreezing the bank accounts. Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland essentially broke the financial code of omerta by highlighting how easy it is for government to seize your bank accounts, credit cards, retirement accounts, insurance, mortgages, loan access, and cut you off from money without due process. The unintended consequences was an immediate and clear reference point if the government did the same action with the digital ID in place. However, this undermined confidence and faith in the banking system cannot be restored quickly. The toothpaste cannot be put back into the tube. The horse has left the barn. Quickly, this becomes the moment for immediate damage control by the Canadian government. This explains why Trudeau dropped the declaration of the Emergency Act. It all makes sense now, all of it. Indeed, the government leaders who take their instructions from the multinational corporations in charge of the World Economic Forum, which is to say almost all of them, are so entrenched in their need to use CV as the pry bar for the Build Back Better agenda, they simply cannot let it go. Without CV, they can't keep the inoculation push. Without the inoculation push, they can't keep the inoculation passport process in place. Without the inoculation passport registration process to track and monitor human behavior, the governing authorities cannot fulfill the mission of a comprehensive digital identity and social credit tracking system. Indeed, everything they seek is contingent upon keeping the premise of CV alive. It is not accidental the World Economic Forum is at the epicenter of this. As we previously noted, the architects of the Build Back Better Society, the World Economic Forum, are guiding various governments on ways to create efficient registration and compliance systems, i.e. ways that permit citizens to prove their inoculation and compliant status. As these discussions are taking place, it is prudent to pause and think very carefully, wisely. We all know, as we are reading this, under the guise of enhancing our safety, the US federal government is in discussions with the medical community, multinational corporations and employers of citizens to create a more efficient process for you to register your inoculation compliance. We know the conversation under the terminology of a CV passport. The current goal is to make a system for us to show and prove our authorized work status, which, as you know, is based upon your obedience to the mandated inoculation. Beta tests are being conducted in various nations, each with different perspectives and constitutional limitations, based on pesky, archaic rules and laws that govern, guess what, freedom. For the West, or for lack of a better word, democratic outlook, Australia, New Zealand, France and Europe are leading the way with their technological system of inoculation checkpoints and registered state national inoculation status tied to your registration identification. New York City joined the inoculation checkpoint process, as their city now requires the inoculation to enter all private businesses. Los Angeles soon followed. The Australian electronic checkpoints are essentially gateways where QR codes are being scanned from the cell phones of the compliant inoculated citizen. Yes, comrades, there's an app for that. Currently, the inoculation status scans are registered by happy compliance workers, greeters at the entry to the business or venue. Indeed, the Walmart greeter has a new gadget to scan your phone prior to allowing you custody of a shopping cart. In restaurants, the host or hostess has a similar compliance scanner to check you in prior to seating or a reservation confirmation. It's simple and fun. You pull up your QR code on your cell phone, aka portable transponder and registration device, using the registration app, and your phone is scanned, delivering a green check response to confirm your correct inoculation status and authorized entry. The Australian government, at both a federal and state level, is working closely with big tech companies thirsting for the national contract to elevate the best universal process that can be deployed nationwide. As noticed by all 6 premiers in the states down under, hardware scanners and software registration systems are all being tested to find out the most comprehensive, convenient portable units to settle upon. Meanwhile, in the US, cities like Los Angeles and New York await the beta test conclusion before deploying their own version of the same process. In Europe, they are also testing their inoculation checkpoints and registration processes known as the EU Green Pass. The Green Pass is a similar technological system that gives an inoculated and registered citizen access to all the venues and locations previously locked down whilst the CV virus was being mitigated. What would have been called a vast right-wing conspiracy theory 24 months ago is now a CV passport process well underway. As with all things in our rapid technological era, you don't have to squint to see the horizon and accept that eventually this process will automate and there will be a gadget or scanning gateway automatically granting you access without a person needing to stand there and scan each cell phone QR code individually. The automated process just makes sense. You are well aware your cell phone already transmits an electronic beacon enabling your Uber or Lyft driver to access your location at the push of a touchscreen button, another convenient app on your phone. So why wouldn't the gateways just accept the same recognizable transmission as registration of your inoculation compliant arrival at the coffee shop? The automated version is far easier and way cooler than having to reach into your pocket or purse and pulling out that pesky QR code on the screen. Smiles, everyone! The partnership between big tech and big government is always there to make your transit more streamlined and seamless. Heck, you won't even notice the electronic receiver mounted at the entry. Give it a few weeks and you won't remember the reason you were laughing at Alex Jones any more than you remember why you are taking off your shoes at the airport. However, as this process is created, it is worth considering that you are being quietly changed from an individual person to a product. Some are starting to worry in the beta test. You must become an object which attributes sitting in a database instead of roaming around anonymously making all sorts of transactions without the government's knowledge. Australians find themselves passing through gates. All product-based systems have these gates to control the flow of stock and weed out errors. It's how computers see things. The more gates, the more clarity. You're updating the government like a parcel pings Australia Post on its way to a customer. If a fault is found, automatic alerts are issued, and you are stopped from proceeding. In New South Wales, this comes in the form of a big red X on My Government Inoculation Passport app if you manage to link your Medicare account without smashing the cell phone to bits. Gatekeeping systems have been adapted from retail and transformed into human-based crowd solutions to micromanage millions of lives with the same ruthless efficiency as barcodes tracking stock. There is no nuance or humanity in this soulless digital age. Barcodes are binary: good, bad, citizen or dissident. Even if you have all the required government attributes to pass through the gates, 2 inoculations, 6 boosters and a lifelong subscription to Microsoft, something could go wrong. If your data fails to scan, you'll slip into digital purgatory and become an error message. It could be problematic if your status fails to register correctly, or if the system identifies some form of alternate lifestyle non-compliance that will block you from entry. Then again, that's what beta tests are for, working out all these techno bugs and stuff. Not to worry, move right along. Then again, for those in the privileged class allowed to shop, take note of CV signs which encourage cashless transactions under the guise of health. Messaging around cards being safer will increase until the Treasury tries to remove cash entirely, almost certainly with public approval. Wait, now we are squinting at that familiar image on the horizon because we know those who control things have been talking about a cashless society for quite a while. We all know that data is considered a major commodity all by itself. Why do you think every system you encounter in the modern era requires your phone number, even when you are not registering for anything? It, meaning you, us, are all getting linked into this modern registration system that is defining our status. We also know that system operators buy and sell our registered status amid various retail and technology systems. Yeah, that opaque shadow is getting a little clearer now. Perhaps you attempt to purchase dog food and get denied entry into PetSmart because you didn't renew the car registration. Or perhaps you are blocked from entry because you forgot to change the oil on a leased vehicle you drive. And Toyota has this weird agreement with some retail consortium. You head to the oil change place that conveniently pops up in the Citizen Compliance app. It's only 2 blocks away. They clear the alert after they do the oil change, and you are gateway compliant again. Missed your booster shot? We're sorry, citizen. Your bank account is frozen until your compliance is restored. Please proceed to the nearest inoculation office, as displayed conveniently on your cell phone screen, to open access to all further gates, checkpoints. Tap to continue. Vote for the wrong candidate? Attend or donate to a trucker protest? Yes, it seemed transparently obvious where this was heading, and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau just awakened the masses. So I think you can see how incredibly important this is, and if there's one thing that I would do is urge you, do not download any apps like this. Do not get a digital identity. We don't need a digital identity. How hard is it to pull out your driver's license, for goodness sake? I have never, ever. How often do you do that? How often do you have to ID yourself? You've got to go pick up a parcel at the post office, pull out your driver's license. What's the big deal? Holy jumpins. You can't do that even. It's a trap. It's a sweet, glistening honey trap to snag you and to be able to control your every movement. Okay, so if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe below and share. I think this is one video that really needs to be shared. It's a boom, boom, boom video. And in the meantime, this is Houndog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant evening, and we'll talk very, very shortly. You take care now. See ya. Bye.